to this is my very first build video, and this is for my hybrid. Yep, I said it. Hybrid Dragon Knight. I had been playing a Magicka Dragon Knight for a couple of years now. I've been playing the Elder Scrolls since late alpha into most of the early betas. I've been playing for the past 4 years or so. I played on and off as a Dragon Knight, Magicka Dragon Knight. I have also a Stam Dragon Knight, and so I had been taking a little break and came back. Decided to make a hybrid Dragon Knight, especially with the changes to two-handed weapons counting no longer as one slot but as two. I would try my hand at making a nice Dragon Knight build. Hope you guys enjoy. Feel free to check me out on Twitch. I stream usually 2 to 3 times a week. It's very enjoyable for gameplay, battlegrounds. Haven't done open world with this build, but have been enjoying doing battlegrounds with this build. And let's jump right in. So we are a Dragon Knight. We're running 6 heavy. So we're running 5 heavy Pelinals in pen on our front bar. With you can either run a light glove or a light belt to gain the maximum amount of spell and physical resistance. I'm running 1 Impen Kina, which is pretty standard on a Pel build. You're stacking max weapon damage to maximize your spell damage. And then the next one that I use is One Piece Dama House. I've been farming this all week. Finally got a group, thanks to Ninja614, hooked me up with a nice group, and we were able to get this helm, as I had never farmed Vet Valkreth before, so I was able to get that. And of course, we want that. You want heavy, and you want it for the basically the one piece, which gives max stam, match Magicka, which of course we're using both since this is a hybrid. Works out really well. The next set that we're running is a 5-piece Shackle Breaker. I'm still in the midst of trying to get my at least purple. Been farming a bit, just been busy with work, so I haven't had enough time, and I'm not going to purchase the items to upgrade it. I'll just farm it myself. So basically we're running a 1-piece Magicka with a reduction glyph, basically to reduce the cost of our spells, as most of our abilities are cost Magicka. And I have 2 weapon glyphs, and I'm also testing out the protective trait. Maxed out, it gives you like 1850 or 1900 on the 1900 weapon. It gives you both spell and physical resistance. The reason that I chose this was because we're a frontline basically brawler with very little in terms of ability to move around the battlefield. We don't have anything that gives us mobility like a streak, or the ability to move very quickly. And most of the time, realistically, a Dragon Knight finds himself in XV1 scenarios where it's just you and you have multiple opponents that are hitting on you. So the extra weapon and spell resistance comes out to about 4.5% reduction in terms of the damage that you take. And so that's why I chose this instead of going for something like either an extra arcane or infused. I find that I don't think infused would be best. I think running the protected, but I'm still testing it out. It is working out really well. I do find myself to be fairly tanky, as well as being able to put out a good amount of damage. And of course, we're running a gold Nirnhoned 2-handed sword on the front bar with a Restore Magicka glyph to help with our sustain. Shacklebreaker is really great. The 5-piece gives you both magic and stamina, which we need for roll dodging, break freeing, as well as some of our abilities are stamina based. It gives us extra regen, which is great, as well as giving you that weapon damage on the 2-piece. The spell damage on the 3-piece is really useless. but we gain two 4 pieces and two 5 pieces, so it works out just fine. Back bar is a infused resto with an increased weapon damage glyph, and basically that's up um, all the time. So that's basically what we're running. We're running one piece Dama House heavy, one piece Kina heavy. We're running 6 heavy, and you want to shoot for all impen, and one light either on the glove or on the belt. I'm running, like I said, one arcane with a reduced spell cost glyph, and I'm running 2 weapon glyphs with the protectorate, and fully like with these golded out, which is what I'm shooting for. Over the next couple of weeks of golding this out, we'll be sitting with an additional 3,800, I believe. It's either 3,800 or 3,700 resistance, which is pretty good, as you'll see as I continue with the build. So as you can see, we're 64 into Magicka. We're running about 23,000. I think my food fell off. We're running tri food, and we're also running the Warrior Mundus. I am going to be getting rid of Vamp, as Vamp is not beneficial for this build. So I do not recommend running Vampire. You're just going to take extra fire damage. You're going to take extra damage from Dawnbreakers. So it's not worth having on this build, especially because we're not running a Sword and Shield build. So the damage that you take is going to be a little bit higher. Well, it's going to be higher in that you're not blocking. But this is a very tanky build. Of course, we do have access to both Major Prophecy and Major Savagery, which is related to the build. As I said, we're running Tri-Stat Food, and we're sitting at 28,000 Magicka in Battlegrounds. Once this build is fully, I would say fully golded out, but you'll see we'll be running almost 29,000 Magicka with 25,000 HP, and your stamina will be at like 19.8 once I finish up with this build. Unbuffed, we're sitting at 2644 spell damage and 2644 weapon damage. Our recovery for the Dragon Knight, this is actually pretty high. I've never really run this high recovery on Dragon Knight. Usually because you're running like Desert Rose and you have your potions and you have your ultimates, and that's usually, I usually don't have this high recovery. With a pot, we're sitting at like 950 Magicka stamina. HP is irrelevant. We're running 20% on both weapon and spell critical, which is good. Not fantastic, but this is a heavy build. Our unbuffed spell resistance is 23.4 and almost 20,000 physical resistance. We're missing one piece of Inpen on that helm, which would basically put us at 1,800 critical resistance. So that's what I'm shooting for. I need to trait change that helm, and then drop Vamp, and I should see a noticeable difference in the mitigation, because there's a lot of Dawnbreakers in Battlegrounds, as well as flame damage, and taking 20% for 5% is not worth it. So I would highly recommend not being a Vamp, which I will be dropping today. On with the skills. Our first ability, as I said, we are running a 2H sword, so we are using Stampede. I chose Stampede. The damage is good, of course. It always does critical damage, which is great. But primarily I use the sword, Gap Closer, for the slow. So you gain a 60% slow for 4 seconds, and that stacks with the slow from Warmth. So you'll get 60% slow from Stampede, and then hit your opponent with any basically Ardent Flame ability, and it would reduce their remaining speed by an additional 30%, which is great. So it keeps your opponent within range. Third ability that we're using is Forward Momentum. It's great for the hot. Primarily, we use it to gain Major Brutality to buff both our weapon and spell damage, as our spell damage is basically the equivalent, as it says there, your spell and weapon damage both become the highest of the two values. So that basically pushes our pushes our both spell damage as well as our physical damage by 20%. For it's got a nice duration of 33 seconds. It gives us a very nice hot, as well as most importantly making us immune to snares and basically roots for 8 seconds, which is fantastic. We're running 6 heavy, not going to be dodge rolling a whole lot, and so that gives us the immunity to like other Dragon Knights who are going to CC you, especially most other Dragon Knights are using Fossilize for the root. Um, so that helps us a lot. Helps us to keep us mobile, as well as giving us a little heal over time. Fourth ability, I'm sure, is very controversial. There are not many people who like using Stone Giant or the Stone Morph ability. I find that it works out fantastic for this build, primarily because it does really good damage. As you said, see there, it says it deals 100% more damage if you successfully stun your target. Excuse me. So it does good damage, doesn't cost that much, has a beautiful range on it, which works out really well for this build because our gap closer is only 22 meters. In Battlegrounds, I believe this is 28 meters. I forget. Or do you gain the bonus of Cyrodiil? I think that's only in Cyrodiil. I think it's only because I'm in Cyrodiil. Actually, no. I guess it does work. Yeah, it does work in Battlegrounds as well. So you gain a 41 meter CC. It will burst them. It will. I've hit people. I've hit people in light armor and medium armor for 5k, 5.5k with a Stone Giant crit, as well as giving you both the minor resolve and minor ward, which basically will add to our spell resistance and our physical resistance. It also does, for those who are familiar, of course, it will proc Eternal Mountain. So the CC, it's got a nice long CC. It's about 4 seconds, as well as proccing the minor buff, which is 5% more weapon damage, as well as generating 3 ultimate, as well as restoring stamina. So this one skill does quite a bit. It CCs, does burst damage. It increases your resistance. It gives you more stamina back. It gives you ult back, as well as the long stun. And of course, it's got a beautiful range to it, which allows you to gap close into a fleeing opponent or a mage who's basically casting on your opponent. You can CC him from range, and be able to get up in his face with a gap closer. Our fifth ability is Flames of Oblivion, which is a nice dot, but it also gives us our major prophecy as well as our major savagery, basically putting our crit to 20%. So that we'll be able to, you'll be able to light attack crits will do more damage, your critical heals from forward momentum, as well as critical damage from our ultimate, as well as being able to crit more with our with our Magicka abilities. It also is a nice range. It lasts for 15 seconds. It's a 15 meter range. You basically cast this every 15 seconds. And it gives you 4 ticks. You gain 1 tick on the cast, so you want to be within range of your opponent. So you want to gap close, CC, and then proc your Flames of Oblivion. So you immediately gain 1 tick of damage and 3 ticks subsequently after over the 15 seconds. Does nice 5k fully buffed. It's like 5.5k. Let's see, especially with the glyph proc. So yeah, actually with the glyph proc from Resto is probably like 6,000. That's very good dot over time. And of course our ultimate, I've chosen Berserker's Rage. It does really good damage. I've hit people for 8, 9, almost 10k with this ability. It goes through resistances, which doesn't mean anything if your opponent is blocking. It can be dodged, but then again, so can leap. I've had my leaps cloaked. When you're leaping a Nightblade, you can block leap. and that's kind of why I didn't go with Leap. Leap does really good damage, does area effect damage. It also CCs and gives you a nice damage shield if you want. I've tested both. I highly recommend Berserker's Rage. Primarily, it will buff you. It will the whatever your opponent's mitigation is. If you're hitting a medium armor build, it will basically cap you. It will overcap you. You'll basically sit at 40,000 or more, 45,000 spell resistance and 40,000 physical resistance. Even if you get debuffed by like a Nightblade or something, you will still be capped. So you'll have cap resistances for those 8 seconds. I primarily chose this morph for the immunity, as the last part of it says you are immune to all disabling snares and immobilizations, as well as being CC'd. So you cannot be CC'd, you can't be rooted, you cannot be snared for 8 seconds. It does really good damage. I also like it because you can animation cancel it. You can block cancel it, you can dodge roll cancel it, you can critical rush, and then pop your ult and immediately dodge roll to avoid incoming damage, and it will go off. As opposed to a leap, leap will leave you susceptible, especially if you leap from range. You are susceptible to the incoming damage as you're mid leap. I've been killed multiple times in the process of leaping, as it just basically, unfortunately, it looks really cool, but it does leave you exposed. While as even if your opponent blocks Berserker's Rage, it doesn't do all that great damage. You still gain the mitigation. You'll gain, and of course the last part, the immunity to disabling effects, which is fantastic on a build that's basically a frontline juggernaut type of character, designed for up in your face damage. It's primarily why I chose Berserker's Rage, as opposed to the other morph. The other morph, Onslaught, basically refunds you the ultimate, which is great on a Dragon Knight because you gain your sustain through Battle Roar. The reason I didn't go with that morph is primarily because you'll fall into the same practice as most other Dragon Knights, where they either use it in a pinch to gain back resources, or they'll use it as an execute. And I didn't want my ultimate to be used that way because I have enough damage to kill players. I wanted an ult that immediately when it was available, I could pop it and not worry about, oh, I just wasted it, and I didn't get I didn't get refunded. I wanted it to be able to use mid-fight. I wanted to be used at any point in the fight and not worry about not having the ability to do enough damage to execute, as this build has more than enough ability to execute a player's. Our back bar, we are running engulfing. As I said, we're running a resto. We're running engulfing on the front bar. I use engulfing because most of the time when I get into groups, I want to be able to proc combustion. Combustion returns 500 magicka every 5 seconds whenever you proc burning. So you can pop this on multiple opponents, and it will proc the burning effect, which will do extra damage. It will also increase your whip damage as well as your flames of ability damage by 10%. Does a nice little upfront damage, which is nothing important. We're primarily using it for the extra damage. We're primarily using it for the combustion passive. I tried using Burning Embers. Burning Embers is okay. If you find yourself struggling to heal, you can use it. I haven't had that problem of struggling to heal. I do not run a burst heal on this build. As you'll see, my next ability is Rapid Regen. Rapid Regen is very cheap. Coupled with the 5.5 seconds of Major Mending, you'll gain like 6 ticks from your Rapid Regen, around there, 5 or 6 ticks with 25% more healing, as well as healing from Forward Momentum. So we've got 2 hots. We've got the heals from Forward Momentum, we've got the heals from Rapid Regen, we've got the heals from Power Lash, as well as our ult, which I'll go into. We're running Fragmented, primarily just for the stam return, as well as the Major Mending uptime, to basically keep us with really good hots. Our 4th ability is Dragon Scales. I love Dragon Fire Scales. It's really good for reflecting frags, for reflecting that stupid fire wheel from destructive reach, as well as on there are a lot of magic Nightblades, so reflecting cripple, reflecting their main ability strife, as well as their spectral bow. Um, for their snipers, like it's a really good skill. A lot of shit goes through it, but at the same time, it it saved me in a pinch, especially for a build that is primarily doesn't have the ability to get away. Like we're not really fast, we don't have the ability to streak, we're not stacking shields. So this hands down perfect for this build. Last ability is our physical resistance buff. It gives us both physical spell resistance. It's really good for popping Nightblades out of stealth. It puts a nice damage over time, as well as reflects a nice amount of damage. And primarily, we're using it for the Draconic passive, for the 12% more healing. So while this is running, we're getting 12% more from Rapid Regen, 12% more from Forward Momentum, and then of course you pop Major Mending and you get an extra 25%. So it's a lot of healing over time that we have on this build. Like I said, if you are struggling with heals, you can always switch to running Embers and can spam Embers if you need heals. I really don't feel that you need it, as I gain enough healing between the abilities that I have on my bar right now. Our last ult is Life Giver. The reason I chose Life Giver is because if you read the last part, it says when you activate this ability, you automatically cast Regeneration, Blessing of Protection, as well as Steadfast Ward at no cost. So you gain a really good heal. You'll gain 5 ticks, or an ally will gain 5 ticks of 80, almost 8,500 basically, unbuffed. But also the abilities that you chose to morph. So the base morph of Rapid Regen is Regeneration. So whichever morph you choose is the morph that will be casted when you cast Life Giver. So when you cast Life Giver, it automatically casts Rapid Regen for 5 seconds. It automatically will cast Combat Prayer for 5 seconds, as well as the buffs that you get from Combat Prayer. So Combat Prayer gives us Minor Berserk. So you can use Life Giver when you need to heal, but you can also use it to go offensive. So you cast it, you become really difficult to kill. It gives you both minor buffs, which is redundant, but it gives you 8% more damage from Berserk, which allows you to go offensive while being defensive, which is why I chose that, as well as casting Healing Ward on you. So it will cast all of that. It's really strong. I highly recommend it over over the other morph that just gives you the extra critical damage and critical reduction. It really doesn't matter if you have critical reduction if you have a ward on you, and usually you're going to use this when your health is fairly low, so you're going to gain a big ward, which will give you 100% critical reduction for the duration of the ward, as well as giving you the major protection. But I really don't find, we're only 20%, so we're not really gonna gain much from the extra critical damage. We only have 20% critical, so it's not really that beneficial as opposed to running this morph. Of course, we're running Tri-Stat Food, and I also recommend running have Tri-Stat Potions, or running potions, immobility potions. Those are pretty good. In terms of fully buffed, you can see our stats just with the major and minor buff. We're sitting at 3,300 both weapon and spell damage. As you can see, we're almost 29,000 spell and 25 physical resistance. As I said, this goes up to 30,000 and about almost 28,000 to 26,000. Let's take a look at that. So that will push us to 13. It'll push us at 26, like 26.4, and then with the glyph proc, that basically will put us at, I think, 38 and change. Basically, once golded out, you'll sit almost at 4,000 weapon and spell damage. 19,000 stam, fully buffed, you'll be at 25,000 health and almost 29,000 magicka. Very strong build. Again, this is a hybrid Pelinals build for no CP battlegrounds. Um, Almost done fully maxing out this. I just need to finish up with changing over this to purple and working on getting gold, and then swapping this over to Impen. Hope you enjoy the build. Feel free to catch me on Twitch. I do stream fairly often. I usually post my streaming schedule. Feel free to check me out at You Are Infamous NYC on Twitch, and I'll be posting more gameplay with my hybrid Dragonite. Take care.